What was the reaction like? Were they thrown off guard? Did they think, oh, she's a crazy, stay away from this mom, she's a crazy one? How did they react to that?
All of the above. Fortunately, I was already.
Before we get started, I want to thank astrology reader Susan Reynolds for introducing me to our next guest. Today on Time We Discuss, I want to welcome India Leigh, and it's time we discuss what it's like being an intuitive energy reader. India, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said before we started recording, I love occupations that are a little different. Anything that different people can get into, you probably don't need any real formal training. Anything like that, I love. It gives people plenty of flexibility and opportunities. So, that being said, let's start with my obligatory question. What is a typical day like for you as an intuitive energy reader?
When you are reading energy for a living, or reading cards for a living, and doing psychic stuff, all the stuff that I do, your boss is the universe. Your boss is spirit. So when I first open my eyes, I'm checking in because if you notice, when we first become conscious in the morning, our mind likes to get going already. It likes to tell us what the day's going to be like. It likes to tell us about the challenges we're going to have. It really likes to focus on the negative because it likes to get us ahead of whatever challenges there might be that we think we know about. And so, in order to sort of align myself with the most positive professional outcome for the day as well as personal, I just start by saying, okay, universe, or I like to connect with my spirit guide team or my higher self. And I just sort of use a word to hold all that, which is just spirit. And I say, okay, spirit, just show me what you want me to see today. Show me what you want me to do. Thank you for using me today as a vessel of that energy. And thank you for using me to deliver the messages to who you want the messages to get to, which is my job, like a cosmic post person. and and I do have a plan because I have readings that have already been scheduled, sessions that have been scheduled, podcast appearances that have been scheduled. And I also am a mom. So in the summertime, I am momming all morning. And then I'm right now doing all my sessions in the evening or afternoon. And that works really well. But during the school year, I'm definitely doing it all while he's at school.
You said something very interesting. You talked about like the psychic component. So, how did you actually get started with this? Was some kind of like awakening moment? Were there skills that you're able to develop? How did you get started going down this road?
Well, before this, I was a journalist. I was an editor and reporter and writer, and did that for about 20 years. And then became a later in life mom, had my child at 41. And when I had him, it really changed me, not just biologically, but mentally and emotionally and energetically. And of course, we say that and it's like, ooh, change, like, a fairy godmother. It is grueling to go through that kind of change. It's like being a human Rubik's Cube, and you're like, what's happening to me? And so that took the form of anxiety and, a lot of intense physical stuff. And I coped with that through meditation and using specifically self hypnosis recordings. I really, really benefited from those. It's similar to meditation, but a lot more focused on you're doing this to reduce your anxiety, or, And so I used those while my child was napping very short naps. And eventually I just started feeling tingles and energy in the top of my head, and it would sort of trickle down through my body. And then I noticed as I was taking my child to play dates and dealing with other moms, there were messages that I felt compelled to share with them. I just felt compelled to tell them something, or, ask them something about a certain experience they were having. And as those things were coming through in our conversation, I was feeling those tingles. I was feeling that electricity, and I was like, something's happening. And then I started playing with cards, oracle cards, tarot cards, really just as a means to try to understand what I was getting, what was happening. And then it just came through more and more strong. That was 10 years ago now. So I've been doing this professionally for 10 years almost. And I realized recently it's not unlike being a journalist. It's just that these messages are coming from, our spirit realm rather than what's happening around in the world. So it's kind of interesting segue.
That's really cool. So I was speaking with no, I was not speaking with. I was exchanging emails with a person, and they said they had psychic abilities, and I invited them to be on the show. So I thought this would be fantastic. Have you come on, talk about it and everything. And the guy replied saying that while he would love to do that, he felt that his skills are not something that could be taught. So for him, it was like I don't want to waste your time or anything. And I respected that. I really did. But it's interesting what you're saying, where it's like you previously had no seemingly ability. You weren't like as a kid, like these instances happened or anything like that. You didn't seek it out. It seems like it just kind of happened, which is very, very interesting. And that happened around the time you said you were doing like self-hypnosis and that sort of thing, correct?
Yes. And that happened because now I really disagree with the person you're emailing with, uh, who may have a completely different life experience than me. I'm sure if you are psychic from birth and you have these experiences when you're a child and you grow, then you probably are like, I wouldn't know how to teach this to someone. I've always just been it. Sure. But I do believe very strongly and have seen evidence that we all are at our heart and in our core psychic and spiritually connected beings. We all have this ability. It's literally another sense that has just become covered up over time, over the evolution of our planet, by our minds, which have developed to be so strong and so overactive now. And the reason that the self hypnosis worked in my case was it cleared that mind clutter out of the way just to reveal what's already there. And I really do believe strongly that's the case for everyone. Now, the person you were emailing with might have been speaking very specifically about his gifts. We all have such different gifts. So for some of us, it's feeling things physically. For some of us, we actually hear it. For some of us, we just know it. For some of us, we see it. And we all have something there that if we're clearing away those limiting beliefs, those thoughts, we're going to find it. We may not call it psychic, we may not use it for our profession, but it's there. Yeah, for sure.
That
And
is
we see that with
fantastic.
our kids, right? With our kids, they're born that way now. We see that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I was speaking with Holly Faust. She is an occult researcher, and she was talking about seeing things with her kids. If I remember right, I hope I'm not. Otherwise, she's getting credit for something, and that's fine. A free plug, free plug. But very interesting that point that you made as well.
Yeah.
So you talked about encountering other parents. What was that like? What was the reaction like when you had a message to give to them? Were they completely thrown off guard? Did they think, oh, she's a crazy, stay away from this mom, she's a crazy one? How did they react to that?
All of the above. Fortunately, I was already an older mom, so that already makes you a little bit of an outlier. So I was kind of used to that. And yeah, I think they were just kind of like, we're having a play date. We got nothing else to do. We're all sort of trapped here in this house. Sure, why not? But then there were a couple where I learned about energetic boundaries because and this is great for anybody who is coming into their intuition at this time, which a lot of us are because the energies that we're going through as a planet are really bringing these gifts to the surface. So a lot of people listening to this may be like, oh, wow, that's actually what's happening to me, but I didn't know it was that. Um, you do have to learn that you should ask first. I really had to learn that, definitely be like, is this something you would like to receive? Don't just start telling somebody. And sometimes I did get a couple moms being like, okay, and that's the end of our talking. But but mostly they were very supportive and encouraging. And my best mom friend uh, always talks about how interesting it was to watch that happen at playdates and how she was very skeptical at first, but over time was like, this is really happening. I believe this now.
Jumping back, you said that you've been doing this professionally for about 10 years now.
Yes.
Talk to me about that very first client you had. How did you get that person? And I suspect it was probably a friend or family member. I suspect, I could be wrong, but how did you get that first person?
Actually, it went really backwards from how a typical business would be with that first family member, friend, client thing. It was the opposite because I was just trying to be, a normal person, a normal human. And 10 years ago, card reading and all that really wasn't what it is now, where you just can't get away from it. 10 years ago, it was like you would be doing this in a Starbucks and people would look at you like, what is going on? So I was actually sort of being obfuscating it, as far as the people who knew me best went. I was kind of like, other moms aside, I wasn't really advertising that I was doing this. But I started a YouTube channel with um, readings on there that were aimed at, if you're an Aries, this reading will resonate for you. If you're a Sagittarius, this reading will resonate for you. And just did that on YouTube like other card readers do. And the feedback that I got there was so wonderful and supportive. And this is resonating with me, and this really helped me. And that was like, okay, I'm on to something here that I need to follow, that I need to do. And it was something I was just doing for free. I was, but then people would start asking for personal readings, which I would give for free. And then over time, I started learning, oh, this is something people do and they do charge for it. So I started doing that. It's when you're doing any kind of spiritual work or any kind of energetic work, it can be challenging to get over that hump because it's like, oh, is it okay for me to charge for this if it's coming from spirit? And the answer from spirit is yes, because I know you have to live and have food, and I know you're a parent and all this stuff. So doing that in a way that is respectful of everyone is something I had to kind of grow into. And, um, but yeah, it was a stranger who saw me on YouTube was my first reading. Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, so let's stick with this online component. So in a post-COVID world, how much are you doing online or virtually versus in person? What's that mix like for you?
Oh, yeah. It is 98% online. Once in a while, I'll have an in-person reading. I am doing more in-person events lately. And again, that's becoming more socially accepted to have a big corporate event and in the corner is a card reader, and the greatest one I did recently was for a convention of traditional therapists. And that was so cool because it was this whole big ballroom of traditional therapists, and I got to do card readings for all of them. And I think a few of them were probably like, I'm going to start using cards in my sessions because it was really just very similar, a lot of overlap. So because, tarot reading can be very therapeutic, where you're really homing in on the feelings underneath the thoughts. And, feelings are just energy that needs to be released. And so they have a lot in common. But I'd say it is mostly online because people will connect with me through social media and then book a session through Zoom, just like what we're doing. Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, so kind of related to that, from your experience, how saturated is this market? How difficult is it for someone to break into this market?
Mm. Right now, it's just on the cusp of getting more challenging. Um, I would not really, I was going to say I wouldn't want to be starting out right now, but that's discouraging. I wouldn't because, I've built this business and built the practice that I do. But if you are, there's certainly a lot with technology that you have an edge with that I might not just because I'm, from another era. So YouTube is and basic social media is really the extent of things. But if you are just starting out, I would say go straight to your TikToks and your social media stuff that's going to really be, especially if you know how to do all that, do it. Um, the thing I would say most about this type of work is that again, you're working for the universe, you're working for spirit. It benefits you greatly because you're in alignment with that. So you receive a lot of rewards. But just remember, it's not something that you're going to drive with your mind. Um, I would say start that practice of in the morning, just please show me. Please show me what my next steps are. Please show me how to do this in alignment with abundance. That's a fine line too to keep in mind. You're not going into something like this saying, I want to do this, and I want to make a lot of money from it because the universe doesn't work in those one for ones. What the universe works in is energy. You're embodying the energy that you want to see reflected to you. So for instance, you could say, I'm being called into doing this and I want to do it professionally. And I also want to live abundantly. And when you do that, you're opening up possibilities for other ways for that abundance to come in. So maybe you're practicing this, but you also, get a big windfall from something. And then, that enables you to do this. So just don't get too much in your head. But aligning with, I want to serve my soul purpose here. I also want to be abundant, is the universe gets that loud and clear and is like, okay, let me show you. Having an open mind is really important.
If someone wants to get started doing this and they want to develop their intuition, okay, what is the best way that, in your opinion, that they can do that? Can they work with someone like you that can kind of help guide them down that road to increase that intuition? How can someone actually get started that has no real foundation?
That's a wonderful first step. That's what I did. I worked with a psychic who was offering an intuitive development course. And that allowed me to see someone doing this as a profession, and then learn some basics. I do offer an intuitive development course as well, and most intuitives do have some form of that. I would encourage that because what that does is gives you sort of an overview of what all the different types of gifts could be, gives you some tools for being able to access your own, and it also lets you gravitate toward what you find um, the best fit for you. I've always loved cards. I've always loved reading deeply into things. But someone else might be like, ooh, I want to learn how to talk with those on the other side, or I want to learn how to use a pendulum. And definitely an intuitive development course is going to touch on all those things.
I realize this is a bit of a loaded question, and it's going to be different for everyone. But if someone is going down that road, how long is going to take them to develop to a point where they can actually start to use their skills professionally?
Mhm.
If they're planning ahead, they're thinking they want to leave their job and this speaks to them. This is what they want to try to do. Is this like a 5-year plan they should start to work on? Is it like 6 months? Is it 2 weeks? What's a reasonable expectation for them?
This is going to be maddening in some ways and great in other ways. When you're working with spirit in the universe, when you ask that question, especially about time, because universal energy doesn't really care about time. That's something care about on the planet here. So when you ask that question of, let's say, your spirit guides, they're going to look at you and say, you tell us, because that is completely within our free will to determine. So if we say, if you say, okay, I want to do that and I want to do it within a year, then you say, okay, guides, within a year, I would like to be practicing this. Now, the key again is to keep your mind open into how that happens. Because, again, they may say, okay, well, you're doing this, you're still doing your job and receiving money, but you're doing this and it's thriving and it all feels good to you. That could be the way. Or you could feel strongly guided to, no, I'm going to quit what I'm doing. I'm going to throw myself into this. And, then if you do that, then you say, please support me in doing this. Please show me how it works. You will be shown the way. I mean, it's really, you decide, be open to how the universe brings it in, and you will get it.
Going to the cards themselves. So when I was a kid, my brother had a tarot deck, and we, he was into that for a period of time, and we went through it a little bit. Very interesting. But to be honest, there are a lot of cards, and it's a lot to remember. So from that perspective, what resources are out there, and I'm sure there's got to be some, to help someone actually learn those and commit those to memory? Or is that as simple as like looking at the cards and it's all like literally right there in the cards?
That's part of it because there are so many different, and to be exact, there are 78 cards in a tarot deck. And there are so many different variations of tarot, of course. Every artist has put out one, and there's one for every genre and theme. The one to start with is the Rider Waite deck, which is the original classic. That when you see tarot cards, it's like that's what you see. And do read that book that comes with it. There are some great, oh, I love the Simple Tarot Journal. It's available on Amazon. It's on my bookshelf right now. And it walks through every card and helps you to learn each one in a really basic way. Now there are tarot coloring books. There are all these cool things to use as companions. But I will say my number one favorite way to learn tarot is by watching tarot readings on YouTube. And so I would just advise you to just go to YouTube, enter in your sun sign, which is your this when someone says what's your sign, that's the one you think of, and tarot, and just start watching them. And first of all, see how they resonate, because you'll find different readers that resonate with you or don't. And then pay attention to those meanings on the cards. They'll all show you the cards and they'll all say what the cards are and then tell you what they mean. You'll notice also that readers add layers of their own intuitive meanings. Like you said, you look at the cards from each type of deck and you get different types of meanings. I mean, I'm showing you one right now from a animal themed deck, and it's got this crane that's all tied up in reeds. And this is actually the Eight of Swords. And in the traditional deck, it would show a person surrounded by eight swords, blindfolded, and they're feeling trapped. This bird is feeling trapped, tied up in the reeds. But you can read a lot of meaning into there. He isn't very tightly bound. He could probably get out of it. It's something that's not going to hurt him. It's just sort of an illusion. These are all things that will bring deeper meaning into your reading once you start practicing. And so I encourage you, once you learn with Rider Waite, check out other decks that just are themes you like. And there will be a deck for any theme you like.
So how about this? And I've never asked anyone this before. What is one of the unexpected perks of doing what you do? So I remember like growing up working retail, you'd get like the 10% off if you shop there or something like that. Or if you work in IT, you might be able to get clients through the job that you work, that because people always need IT help. So what are some of the unexpected perks that you have doing what you do?
I'm endlessly curious about other people. So, in getting to read energies and getting to feel into their messages, I get to just, explore other people, other ways of being, other ways of thinking in a way that takes me as a person out of the equation. So that's my favorite part, is that it's just sort of a way to connect that doesn't have to be personal, but also doesn't have to be, um, you know, guarded and removed. So it's a beautiful way to dive into the human experience from lots of different angles and get to see that. Yeah.
Here's another question I typically like to ask. Can you identify a barrier that if this barrier exists for someone and they don't like this particular thing, this is not for them? And the classic
Mhm.
example I like to use is if you're a web developer and you don't want to be staring at a computer for 8 hours a day, web development is not for you. So, what is the barrier like that? That it's, maybe if you're not outgoing or something like that, maybe you have a bad memory. What is something that's like, this is a deal breaker, this is not for you?
I would say it's that thing of, if you are not able or willing to turn over control, the sense of control. If you are someone who really needs to have that direct input and that equals this output, stay far away from this, because you you need to be very, very open about where it takes you, what it brings you, what's required of you, because spirit's kind of like, oh, you've signed up for to work for me, great, we're gonna take you everywhere, meet every challenge, bring in amazing miracles, but it will not be predictable. So yeah, if you need that control and predictability,
India, I feel like I could speak with you for such a long time about this. Anything that is remotely different, I just absolutely love. Like when I spoke to Joshua Chairs from the Paranormal Investigators, I mean that was awesome. I spoke to a magician, that was awesome. Anything that's a little bit out there, I absolutely just love. But I am running short on time, so unfortunately we will have to cut this short. But one thing I like to do whenever I'm speaking with someone, I like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in. If you want to talk about your business, the floor is yours.
wow, okay. Well, the thing I'm most passionate about is other people connecting with their own intuition. So I would say, um, just start talking to your guides, start talking to them as if they're in the room, um, and or the universe or the higher wisdom, however you want to connect, start talking out loud to them and tell them everything. Don't hold anything back. You can say, I feel frustrated about this. I feel mad about that. Please help me with this. Start doing that. And then start asking for signs that they're hearing you, that they're there, and just allow those signs in. As far as personal projects go, I do have my own Oracle deck that I have created and published. It's called The Oracle of the Mystic, and that's on my website. And everything I do is on my website. So you can check that out there at indialeigh.com. Yeah, it takes you to everything else that I do, and I would love that. I'd love to connect with you.
That is awesome. I'll make sure I get all those links from you. I'll put them in the show notes, in the description. They'll be on the website. They'll be all over the place. So when people are trying to find you, they can easily find you. India, it's been absolutely awesome having you on time. We discuss and learning what it's like to be an intuitive energy reader.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful.